I'm just looking at a piece that came out a couple of hours ago from colleagues in London. London gives 35.7 million for electronic charging points for cars. CityCan, the mayor, says the funding will help reach the ambition. Previously predicted 40,000 to 60,000 chargers would be needed by 2030. At the minute, London has 13,000 charge points. That's a third of all the charges across the UK. We've got about 5 here, haven't we? I'm only joking. And they're basically saying, but London is now the best equipped city of anywhere in Europe. So what's going on here? I make the point, electric car drivers, especially those of you who have happily charged up on the public ones for free thus far, the end of that particular road has come. As of the 26th of this month, you'll have to pay. With more on that and the direction of traffic here with regard to electric vehicles, I'm joined by Mark McCall of the Electric Vehicle Association of Northern Ireland. Hi, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mark.
It's nice to have you on again, Mark. Thank you for joining us. Do you sort of, does the heart sink when you see the progress being made in London versus the absolutely paltry sort of hand we're being dealt here?
Yeah, well, things are certainly slow here, Mark, although we have to say that change did start last year. The final quarter of 2022 saw rapid charger numbers double in Northern Ireland. Doubling a small number is still a small number, as we say, but at least it shows a positive direction of travel here. But yes, much more to do. I'm
looking at the Northern Ireland map. It's in real time. 3 in Cookstown. Where's that? Strabane given 6-2 for Letterkenny. Londonderry's given for 8, and then you zoom in on that, Mark, and there's the high speed. And we know where they are. There's so few of them that most people listen to this know exactly where every one of them is.
Yeah, you'll probably find that, in any town that you look at in Northern Ireland at the moment, if you see 8, you might see 6 of them that are offline. That's on the ESB network, which is the network which is turning on pay to charge. And really, this is part of the reason. There's been no business model for the upkeep of those chargers. Free's great, and we would all love free fuel if we can get it. But do we want a free network that's basically not available to most of us? I think most EV drivers would rather pay and take it.
Let me do my duty as a public servant. Drivers, the Maxhall service station on the waterside, the Glendermot, is free as we speak. Those lovely new chargers at the Northwest Transport Hub, free. City Centre, where are we? We're in Carlisle Road. There's one there. It's free. Mark, there's not a bean charging up in Derry.
Well, whenever you say free, you mean available?
Available,
or no charge. Available, yes. So if they're showing as available, it's highly likely that they might actually may not be working, because generally, if you're looking for, as I say, an ESB charge point in this part of the world, then it's either someone's been parked on it for 15 hours or else it's out of order.
This is what happens. People go, actually, just leave it on all night and come back in the morning. And that's unsustainable. Of course it is.
Exactly. Somebody said to me once, if there was a stall down the street handing out free ice creams, even you didn't want an ice cream, you might be in the queue for one. So I think that's true. We all have a bargain. And, there are plenty of us that could be charging at home that aren't.
And so they are all free. Listen, I go up, I'm just zooming out then to, say, Carndona, and I click on that charger, Mark, public car park, Relief Road, Carndona. 0.56 euro per kilowatt hour. So it's a tale of two jurisdictions, isn't it? Thus, until the 26th of this month.
Yes, so the 26th of this month we will get paid to charge here. Again, caveat that this is ESB network. There are other network operators now in Northern Ireland, but this is the original network that rolled out in 2011. So prices are broadly similar to what they are across the border, with the exception maybe of the top, the sort of ultra rapid, high power, as ESB term it. We don't actually have any of those yet, but they've committed to roll out 5 new rapid charging hubs here, which will have those sort of super fast.
As the man says, Mark, do you know what? On the longer scheme of things, because I know the Ballymena crowd making the buses, they're already into hydrogen. Are electrics so slow here that they're what the man would have called a baton docket? They're hard to charge. You can't charge if you live on a terrace street because somebody will trip on the wire out to the car. I see no big thinking there, in terms of how do you do that in terraces? How do you do it if you live in a flat? Is it all always going to be for the middle classes with their own driveway?
Certainly, if you believe some of the papers, that's the problem. But just looking here, 88.1% of our members, EV drivers, say their next car will be an EV. Just 1.6% of EV drivers in Northern Ireland said that they definitely won't have an EV again. So I think that gives you the
so people who have them like them.
Love their EVs. Yes, and there definitely is a divide there. We talked before about this divide between people who can charge at home and people that can't charge at home, and that we see is certainly opening up to one of the major issues here. If you can charge at home, you can avail of cheap overnight economy 7 rates. If you can't park off street and you need to be charging from a public charging all the time, then costs are very different.
Right. And Mark, just a couple of general ones when I have you, because you'll know these probably off the top of your head. With a car coming out now that doesn't cost you 100,000 and a standard electric, 20, 30, 40 grand, with a full charge, how far is that car getting? Certainly not from here to Cork. Is it getting from here to Belfast and back?
So yeah, plenty of cars would get from here to Cork.
Would they?
200. Well, Belfast to Cork's around 260 miles, I think, off the top of my head. So there are 300-mile range cars out there. But even if you have a 200-mile range car, you only need one stop. And I would say most people Belfast to Cork are going to stop maybe for a break, and a 10, 15-minute top up at a high power charger will get you on your way.
So get you, if you can find one.
Well, south of the border and on the main routes, you will find one. It's just the north where we're struggling a bit. But even in the last few months, we've seen Belfast obviously getting the most of the chargers at the minute, and that's where charge point operators are starting. But we've seen Ballymoney and Lurgan, Carrickfergus this week, and Clough-Mills, Enniskillen, all those towns getting new DC chargers. So we're going to see a big change hopefully in 2023.
So now that we're going to be charged, those drivers, as you say, could have just parked up and nobody can wave anything at them. They just park up overnight. So when they're starting to be paying to charge, do we know how much that's going to be? So what is it in Donegal? 40, I'm just doing off the top of my head, 42, 3 pence per kilowatt hour. What, are you anticipating a similar rate this side of the border?
So the ESB have published their rates on their AC chargers, the sort of ones that you would park for a few hours at, are 49p. And
49?
rapid charge, yeah.
Well, that's more expensive. I mean, it's only 53 cent in the Republic, so it's slightly more expensive here then.
It's broadly in line when you take into account that the VAT rate is different in the south. So we pay, I think it's 20% here versus 9% in Ireland on charging. So we think that the first two tiers, the AC charging and the rapids up to 100 kilowatts, are broadly similar. We do see an increase of around 13% on these high power chargers that are coming. And ESB tell us that that's because of the increased cost of connection charges in Northern Ireland.
But the problem, I guess, I think the new Audi Jeep does 320 mile with a full charge. 80 grand, Mark. We're not too many of us are going to be buying the new Audi Jeep, No,
but you have cars like the MG4 coming out of China, which is a great car, sort of Gulf price around 26,000, which is a 200 mile plus car. So the change is happening. Yes, certainly. The EVs are still more expensive than piston cars, but we do see things changing there as well.
It should be like a Dodge. An electric car is a very simple thing. It's like a torch. It's a battery connected to, wires that powers things. I mean, it's a really simple. An electric car is a very simple thing.
They're super efficient, yeah.
Super efficient in that sense, and they'll have so much less going forward. No, I don't know if it's got carburetors and all the stuff that goes wrong with a combustion engine. You have none of that with an electric. Exactly. It's just it's charged to go, or it's not. Do you ever see this kit car agenda kicking in? That people, our generation, Mark, and those our fathers and mothers before us, it was like car was status. I honestly see a time coming when cars aren't status. It's just like a buggy, or a sort of a thing, a kit of a thing that just gets you simply from A to B. But we're miles away from that yet, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we're a long way away. Sort of autonomous driving and those sort of things are, going to bring maybe new freedoms to people without sight, for example, or disabilities. That those are all things that they'll bring in the future. But as you say, that maintenance-wise, there's so little to go wrong compared to an internal combustion car that the running costs certainly are cheaper.
Right. What's the direction of traffic here? Speak to the policymakers. I mean, we've entered the political season in this part of the world in terms of the pending election, Mark.
Sure.
I see very little there to sing and dance about. The stuff that you'd have thought should have been a priority in terms of looking after Mother Nature, putting protections in, incentives for people to do the right thing with the heating of their homes and all the rest. There's so and I mean, fair play to so many of the people in the Republic. They're moving slowly but steadily in so many directions. Why are we so bad at that up here?
It was interesting to listen to Steve Bradley, beforehand, and he shares our frustrations about the speed of movement in this country. We all know what needs to be done, but getting things done seems to be terribly frustrating. We wrote to DFI in February of 2020, asking for a green space to be painted at an on-street charger in County Down. We got a reply within a year to say it would be done, but we're still waiting.
You asked for a what? What did you ask for?
So most on-street chargers can charge 2 cars at once, but
Yes.
they mostly have one green space painted at them, so we could double the availability of those chargers by putting the second EV charging space in there.
There's 2 chargers on a charger, but there's only one parking space.
There's only one parking space.
Go figure.
We're waiting for over 3 years now for DFI to paint the space green, so that's what we're up against.
I don't understand that, because I've been their favour. Because you'd be coming on radio programmes like this going, you never guess how efficient they were. They were brilliant, and they'd be, maybe reflecting that in their team meetings. But yet this attitude, sure, will be grand,
We see ministers standing, when we had ministers standing in front of photographs saying, lovely things at COP26 and the like, but the actual actions after these things are few and far between. So that's certainly frustrating. But the private sector is there. There are other companies like Maxwell and Weave and Everrun, and they are now starting to find sites themselves and actually get things done. Things seem to happen much quicker, obviously, in the private sector. With that caveat again that we have these issues around grid connection prices.
Right, Mark, before I let you go, direction of traffic, forgive the pun. What is it that you look for? Do you wait for the politicians to shake themselves, departmental stuff, or is it happening in the real world? I mean, if you take the French and the Spanish, any old car does. It's not about, well, I'm not saying that French people don't have rich cars and Mercedes and all the rest, but there's a totally different attitude there. What do you see in the long grass here? What are you looking at in sort of middle distance?
Well, we look at battery electric, full battery electric sales for Northern Ireland. Q1 were around 10% of new cars.
Of all new cars?
And that's up from 8% in the same quarter last year.
Wow.
But when we look at the UK, it's more like 15%. Ireland's more like 16.5% in the same period. So we are still behind. But we need to see the infrastructure grow. That's the first thing, because that gives people confidence then to move to electric. And that's really where our focus lies at the moment.
Mark, always good to talk. Keep us posted, and thank you for that. So listen, folks, if you are one of the ones who's enjoyed free charging on the public chargers in this jurisdiction, as of the 26th of April, that's going to go up to 40-something pence per kilowatt hour. I don't know how long you sit then or how many kilowatt hours you need for a full charge. I don't have such a vehicle, although I aim to have before I depart this mortal coil.